So as we get closer and closer towards the end of Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, believe it or not, we only have about 4 months left, meaning this story is starting to wrap up. And so from what we've been hearing in the latest cutscenes and radios that we can find in game, one of our main characters may die. Someone who's been with us for a couple of games now, this one and Cold War, someone who's become one of the more loved characters in the new Dark Aether story, but in the latest radios that were added into MW3 Zombies, there is a feeling that Revanov may die. And actually going back a couple of seasons, we saw in that vision that Ava had her slashing Revanov's throat. Even though Revanov is Ava's father, her mother is Samantha Maxis, her surrogate mother is Dr. Grey, he was chosen to take care of her. Meanwhile, Grey is dead and Samantha is MIA, her status is classified. She's more than likely still trapped within the Dark Aether. When she did get trapped in there 30 years ago in the 90s, Revanov, Grey, Strauss, Carver and Weaver all tried to save her, but they failed. They couldn't bring her back, which in one way or another resulted in all of them dying, besides from Revanov. Revanov was the chosen one to watch over his daughter Ava, and that's what he's been doing since then. But as we've been hearing from the new radios and recent teasers, from the little hints that we've had, it does sound like by the end of the story, Revanov is going to die, possibly by the hands of his daughter. Anyway, in game you will find this piece of intel, which is a radio from Miller having a conversation with Revanov. This is what they say.
Excuse me, Revanov. Feel free to send me a pack in, but I've noticed you're not rattled by anything going on here. Also, people have been saying Green didn't have a choice in bringing you on board.
My expertise came at a high price. Being here, it is my duty. We all have our instructions.
I got history with this kind of thing, too. The place I grew up, it was a town by the name of Liberty.
My God. You were there. But you would have been so young. How did you possibly...
Hold up. You know about what happened? Every pencil neck I've ever spoken to said those files were sealed.
People, they tell me things. I know it was a tragedy.
Well, shit. I've kept my mouth shut, worked my ass off in the service, and convinced the powers that be to assign me to Deadbolt, just to find out that you're the one with the answers?
Perhaps I can help. When you have time, record what you remember. And I can do my best to connect the dots for you. Separate fact from fiction.
You do that?
I promise.
Deal. Now, that means you can't go dying on me.
I am good at keeping promises.
So right at the end, when Revanov promises Miller that he will give her the information she needs after this is all over, Miller then says back, deal, now that means you can't go dying on me, and Revanov finishes with, I am good at keeping promises, which is a very weird and, if you know the zombie storyline, suspicious way to end any radio in this series, this franchise I should say. Whenever a character makes a promise, it's usually broken, or they try their best not to break it, but they do. So the way that Miller says to Revanov, well, don't die by the end of all of this, yeah, that's very suspicious, especially with what we saw in Ava's vision. Now, I think this was the season 2 cutscene, or it might have been season 3, I can't quite remember, but we saw this happen. Drop it!
You will never be alone again. We will be one.
Johnson, this is Ravenov. The strike team have returned from the rift.
Ravenov?
Ava, they made contact with some kind of entity. They're coming for debrief. Report to ops.
They met... what?
An entity inside the rift.
I'll be right there.
So Ava was sitting on her bed looking at her computer screen at the statuses of the Requiem agents when all of a sudden she starts having a headache, picks up her schizophrenia tablets, when suddenly the alarm sounds. She goes outside and finds that she's surrounded by zombies, but we notice 4 of the zombies are Weaver, Strauss, Carver and Gray. She then fights off against them for a few seconds where suddenly she turns around to slice a zombie, but instead it's revealed that she slices her father Revanov's throat. She is then arrested by Green and told to drop her weapon, but then suddenly she is back in her room, her eyes are glowing purple, she starts speaking, she says, "We will never be alone again, we will be one," and it's revealed that apparently none of that happened. Requiem turning into zombies or her killing her father was a vision. You can see, and we knew this before, she has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Some of the many side effects of that mental health condition are you hear voices in your head, you start seeing things that aren't real, you have unusual beliefs and confused thinking. So that would explain Ava's vision. The schizophrenia has caused that. None of it happened. At least that's what you would believe until the most recent revelation that the entity is Ava, this shadow of a woman that we've been seeing since the beginning, that appears out of the dark ether for a few seconds and then disappears, is a shadow of Ava, a reflection of her in the dark ether. Because her mother is Samantha and Samantha is corrupted by the dark ether, although we don't fully understand how exactly it went down, we believe Richtofen, who is the director of Requiem, stole Revanov's genes, not his literal genes, you know what I mean. We believe he took gene samples from Samantha and then used them to impregnate Dr. Gray. Now, how exactly he did that, I'll just leave that to your imagination. I don't even want to know, even though, yes, this is a different version of Richtofen. He was supposed to be innocent. What we've seen from Eddie so far is pretty sick in my opinion. Everything he did in Cold War and now this, forcing Ava to be born. But yeah, because of Ava's connection to the Dark Ether, because of her mother's connection with it, that is why the entity exists. Every time the veil between our world, Earth reality, is lifted, the influence of the entity on Ava grew stronger. So more than likely, that's why she was having these visions. It wasn't due to her having schizophrenia. She was probably misdiagnosed and doesn't even have schizophrenia. What she's actually suffering with is her Dark Ether entity somehow causing these visions to happen to her. But the big question is, well, are they actually visions or are they more premonitions? I think it's called precognition, where you have foreknowledge of an event. A vision more than likely wouldn't be real, but if the entity is showing Ava what is going to happen in the future, and we see her kill Revanov, that combined with what we've also just heard in that radio from the conversation between Revanov and Miller about him making that promise of him not dying, tells me that actually Revanov probably is going to die. And if he does die by the hands of his own daughter, that would be brutal, especially with everything that he's done for her, with him specifically being the chosen one to look after her. With Gray, Strauss, Carver and Weaver gone, that was the main reason why he was chosen to live. But if she ends up killing him, well then potentially they made the wrong decision when they left Revanov behind, as he explains in this radio.
Having been inside the rift now, I am troubled. What I heard on the other side sounded very much alive. Not like these other creatures we have been dealing with. This one is different. Dangerous. I can feel Eva fading as it gets stronger. She is not herself. Even worse, she's doing everything to hide it. We feared something like this would happen. And that is why I stayed here, always watching. And yet I was unable to stop this catastrophe. And I know it is not her fault, but this child, woman, she is a magnet for disaster. And this thing on the other side, I do not understand it. And anyone who would is long gone. All I know is she is in danger. But this time, I do not know how or when the enemy will strike. Perhaps I was not the one who needed to stay behind.
He says all he knows is that his daughter Ava is in danger, but he doesn't know how or when the enemy will strike, and perhaps he wasn't the one who needed to stay behind. It should have been her mother, Gray, or maybe Weaver, someone who knew more about the situation. The final question we all want to know is, well, why exactly was Revanov the chosen one? And there's another question, how is he even still alive? Because he's about 72 right now in MW3 Zombies. He was 32 in Cold War. This is pretty much 40 years later, so he's in his early 70s. He definitely looks good for his age, although as I've said before, I've seen some pretty good 70-year-olds who are very athletic, but it is quite suspicious how he's still going. I mean, really, he should be retired by now, or on the sidelines, not getting deep into things like he is. And then I come to ask, how was he the chosen one? What did that even involve? Was it simply Requiem saying, Revanov, you just stay behind? Whatever we're going to do now, perhaps attempt to rescue Samantha again, is going to lead to our death, but we can't all risk our lives. Someone has to stay behind to look after Ava, and that will be you. It could be as simple as that, but I feel like it might have involved the Aetherium vials that we see in the middle of the desk, surrounded by the dead Requiem members. I don't know, but one thing I'm pretty sure of is Revanov is going to die. So yeah, there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest content on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.